I'm going to talk about the review process from the time you turn in your application to when you get back your comments. I can do this in a timeline fashion, but I think it really helps to think about it by the people whose hands it passes through. So I'm really going to talk about the Dell Program Officer, the ad hoc reviewers and their reviews. And by ad hoc, we mean that these reviewers are not full-time reviewers for NSF, or they may not do it every year, but they're chosen by the program officer for your specific grant. And then also the panelists and their final recommendation as well. Okay, first, the program officer is an employee of NSF. The program officer will usually serve about 2 years in that position. And they're in charge of really overall seeing the whole year and who is going to be funded and making sure that they have a nice range of types of projects in areas of the world and this kind of thing. The program officer is important because their vision is really important to really shaping Dell grants overall. We've been really lucky in Dell. We've had a series of excellent program officers that have really gone above and beyond in trying to find extra money for people and really reaching out to community members and to put in grants. Once you've turned in your grant application, the program officer looks around and sees who might have the expertise, the knowledge, and the time to review your grant. He or she sends out an invitation to a potential reviewer. At that time, the potential reviewer can turn it down if they don't have enough time, but most importantly, if there's a conflict of interest. And a conflict of interest means if they've ever worked with the person, if the person was a former graduate student of theirs, or if they were too close to that person in any other ways. There's a lot of other ways you can have a conflict of interest, but it's up to the potential reviewer to say, I can't work on this grant. If they agree to work on the grant, even after they agree, they still have to sign a non-conflict of interest. So in this way, Dell really tries to keep everything fair. The program officer sends invitations out to enough people to hopefully get back 2 reviews. And always there's going to be 1 to 2 of these ad hoc reviews, plus another review that we'll talk about in a little bit. So you should have a total of 2 to 3 reviews. The ad hoc reviewers read your grant application, and they have usually at least 1 month, if not 2 months, to read it, think about it, and to write their review. They have to comment on the intellectual merit and on the broader impacts. And for Dell grants, also for the archiving, we're asked to specifically talk about the archiving plan that you have. We comment on those specific areas, and then we're asked to give an overall, what do we think about this grant application. At the end of that, we're asked to rank them. As the ad hoc reviewers are doing the review, the program officer chooses a panel. The panel are also experts in the field, and there's usually about 8 to 10 panelists every year, but it depends on how many grant applications there are. Some years there's as many as 12 panelists that serve at one time. The panelists go through the same process as the ad hoc reviewers. They're given a list of all of the applications, and they're asked to recuse themselves for any that they may have a conflict of interest. Once the panelists have accepted to be part of the panel and gotten rid of what they may have a conflict of interest in, the program officer chooses whether that person is going to function as just a panelist, or whether they're going to be lead on a grant, or if they're going to be what's called a scribe. So the panel gets together in late fall of every year at the NSF headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, and they're literally locked in a room for 2.5 to 3 working days. It starts at 8 in the morning, and sometimes they don't get out till 5:36 in the evening. And then the panelists even have work to do in the evenings. It's very intensive for the panelists, and they take this job very, very seriously. The lead on your grant gives you your 3rd review. That person reviews it beforehand, before showing up, and sends it to the program officer. And they're responsible for leading the discussion. They summarize the reviews for everybody and lead the discussion. At the end of talking about each of the grants, then the whole panel ranks the proposal. The ranking possible are to fund, and in funding we'd have high priority, medium priority, and low priority. The second category is revise and resubmit, and the third category is unfundable. After the discussion, the proposal is given a rank, and the rank, we have three categories. One is fundable, and within that we have high priority, medium priority, and low priority. So the scribe has been taking notes during all of the discussion and the ranking and writes this up. The scribe is responsible for making a cohesive feedback about the discussion. And we try to make this very positive and very helpful, especially if you are going to revise and resubmit. Once the scribe finishes the summary, we all look at the summary to make sure that it has the right tone of the discussion in it. And then the program officer signs off on your summary. You're given that summary statement. You're giving the 2 to 3 recommendations when you get your feedback back from the program officer. The next task for the panel is, once we've done this to every single grant that is submitted, then we go back to the ones that we had decided to fund. And within the highest priority of funding, we rank them highest to lowest. We do that for each of the categories. And that's pretty much the end of the task for the panel. It's now up to the program officer to look at what we've recommended and to look at the whole picture and see, again, what's the best type, because there's still going to be way more applications than can be funded. So it's up to the program officer to see overall what he or she can do with funding, to go and try to get other funding sources to get all of them, if possible, funded. And again, we've had really creative program officers to go to other places at NSF, like Arctic science funding as well. So it's up to the program officer then to really have a global feel for what that year's applications and grantees are going to look like. So sometime in mid to late February to March, everybody will get feedback from the program officer. You were here, whether you've been funded, whether you've been asked to revise and resubmit, or whether you've been declined. So again, the review process has built-in guarantees that a lot of people see the grant. There's ample discussion about the merits of the grant along the way, and that we try to be as fair in this process as possible. And again, if you're not funded, the first time out, call your program officer up. The program officer is there to help you out. Read the feedback, look at it, digest it, talk about it with everybody, and then go to the program officer and ask for more clarifications or more information about what you can do to revise and resubmit.